Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B. We got a bunch of stuff to hit on today, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. What do you got for high tempo this week, Matt?
Looking at the final chapter for the legend, Mike Martin. Florida State baseball, even though they struggled a bit in the regular season, they were able to get themselves into the college baseball playoffs. Excited to hopefully give the coach one last run for a shot at a national championship. Ended up as a 3 seed, and I like their chances. Now they got to the dance, and now it's just a matter of can they advance. They got a tough pull with having Georgia in their bracket, but we'll see what they got. Do
you think they actually have a chance to win the national championship? Or are you just talking about getting into the actual playoff part?
Oh, I think combination of both. I think they're outside. They have an outside chance. I mean, all it takes is get in and see what happens. You get lucky and start hitting at the right time. Anything can happen.
Yeah, it's definitely big if you can get into the first round or second round, whatever they call it, wherever you're playing the best of 3 against the other champion. So you're just in the group stage now, and so how it works is the first round, there's 4 teams in a pod, they all play each other, and then the best one moves on, I believe. I don't think it's an actual playoff, or is it?
I think
it might be a play. It might be a playoff, actually. I can't remember now, but I don't know if it's different than softball. But yeah, then they have the champions of each regional. There will be kind of like a Sweet 16 round, and that's the pivotal round because there's been a couple times down here that NC State's moved on to that round to host. And the one year I went to one of the games, they lost to eventual national champion Coastal Carolina. And it was at NC State, and it actually got canceled due to we had a horrendous storm. And it interrupted the middle of the game, so they came back the next day and played just like 1 inning. And it was like tied ball game, and as soon as they came out, Coastal Carolina got a run to put that game away. So it's crazy, that round. But big exciting games. They start on Thursday or Friday of this week, so check that out. Michigan made it as well as a 3 seed. They had to go all the way out west. I don't know I know some northern teams have won national championships because Michigan has 2, I believe. But outside of baseball, most of the champions lie in the South recently. So we'll see what happens. I don't know what other Big Ten teams actually made it in. I think there might have been 3 or 4. But good luck to all those guys, and we'll be hitting on that when the tournament actually starts next week. I had some stuff for some NFL. I guess before, actually, I'll put on the NFL ticker, but it's kind of my high tempo. Marvin Lewis gets picked up by Herm Edwards, Matt. What do you think of that hire? At Arizona State, for people that don't know.
I think it's a pretty smart move. You have a coach that is in his retirement stages heading out to Arizona, where you retire. So it makes perfect sense. With Herm Edwards, he has a high character guy. Did he win the Super Bowl in Cincy? No. But could he bring some of that knowledge to the college game? I think so, and I think that he'd be a good person to help with recruiting. So it doesn't hurt to have guys that were in the league around your program to help with recruiting and scouting.
But Matt, Lovie Smith told me that you would go to Chicago to retire. In Illinois. Perfect landing place, no expectations. You can just win 4 games and make your millions. So now they have to stand in the heat. You get all 4 seasons in Chicago. That's what Lovie Smith, that's his mindset.
But I'm wondering what the expectation is, because I think Marvin Lewis is in an off-the-field position or like a consultant type thing.
Yeah.
Where he's doing like some leadership stuff. He's doing some off-field things. So he's not going to necessarily have it. I mean, to me, that sounds like a retirement gig where you still stay active with football. You kind of get to pick and choose the appearances that you do.
It's almost like Herm Edwards is taking the Nick Saban approach where he can get old coaches out to come in as advisors. And to my knowledge, you can hire as many of those as you can. Like, I don't think there is a limit. If Nick Saban wants to keep hiring old coaches to be advisors, you're allowed to do that, just like he gets old players that are not of the NFL to come back and work out with the team. Like, I think once you're into that position where you have that success, you're able to bring guys in as, like you said, off the field positions where you're just analyzing film and maybe setting a good example for players and kind of like coaching the coaches. And I think that's where it's really going to make strides for them is Herm Edwards now can go out, get some younger coaches that maybe have a strength of recruiting, and then use Marvin Lewis kind of like as an advisor to them to help them break down film and build up their on-the-field coaching as well. Because that's usually the trade-off. You go with the younger guys that don't have as much experience because they can relate better with the kids, and so it bumps up your recruiting, but then the on-the-field stuff suffers a little bit, so you kind of have to play both sides. And I honestly think that's what Nick Saban did well, and if Herm Edwards can replicate it, we'll see. Arizona's a great state, good school, and I mean, I think they can recruit very well, being so close to California.
When you look at what he was able to do, we kind of dogged the hire at first, but I mean, all he's done is
dog the hire, man. I was pro Herm Edwards all the way. We did our over/under on that. I think I had 7 wins. I don't know what they ended up with, but
I don't remember.
Pac-12 is weak. Herm Edwards can crush it. I know that they choked, and I don't think they were in the Pac-12 championship game, though. They had a chance, but
I think, like you're saying about Saban hiring as many coaches as he wants, that is actually impressive how many coaches go there with torn reputations and spend a year or two down in Alabama and then come out the other side squeaky clean and can be hired just about anywhere.
But that's because of the same reason. They're spending all of their time breaking down film. So if they go to interview, they can talk to anyone. I mean, we talk about it all the time in the NFL. Yeah, they're going to recycle coaches, but in reality, there's only 32 teams. So you can only see the same stuff if you're breaking down NFL film. By getting into the college side, Marvin Lewis now has a bunch of different offenses. There's 120 teams now, something around there, that all run different stuff that you can break down and try to get some ideas. And who says he doesn't try to get back in the NFL in a year or two? Someone will hire him. I would believe it. Some young team or some coach that's going to try to get young, and maybe not as a coaching gig, but sort of like Tom Coughlin, even though Marvin Lewis has had a ton of off-the-field issues. So that might not be the best place for him to land. But we'll see what happens. What else? You had some other roster changes for us, didn't you, Matt?
The bizarre one for me was Richie Incognito getting signed by the Raiders. And I'm starting to see why NFL fans just hate the Raiders, because after bringing in Brown, you now bring in Richie Incognito. So it's a matter of time till there's a fight brewing there.
Well, don't you think he gets a bad rap? Or do you think it was warranted? Do you think it was a lot of media stuff compared to actual locker room issues?
I think it was probably a little bit both. I think the media definitely took some of the stories and blew them up. But when he was arrested recently for threatening to shoot up a funeral home, so there has to be some level of craziness. And plus, they have Vontaze Burfict, so this could be boom or bust for the Raiders.
And there was a joke there, but I let it slide about easy cleanup because they're already in the funeral home. But we'll continue with our football stuff. I don't know what to think of the Raiders because I don't know. I was high on John Gruden, but Matt, what is he doing? There's no plan. He's cutting guys saying that they don't fit in the locker room. Then he's bringing in other guys like Richie Incognito. You can't excuse that. There's no way he can talk to someone that's in the owner position and make that work. Like, it's almost like he should have learned from the media that the less you say, the better. And instead, he comes out and gives his reasons on why he's doing things, and it just doesn't line up. I mean, they made fun of him during the NFL draft. They kept talking or showing that clip on how he doesn't like to draft running backs. And then they had a bunch of running backs that were successful taken in the first round. So it's just almost like he's going to turn into a heel, and everyone's just going to start laughing at him. If he doesn't turn it around, I think he gets 2 more years before the media turns on him. What do you think?
I would say that. I mean, it definitely looks like they're executing some kind of plan, but I mean, whether it's going to be successful or not is to be seen. At this point, I'm meeting it with a little bit of skepticism because I keep thinking with the way that they're adding people, it makes sense for them to win based on the acquisitions, the talent. But can they get all these strong-willed personalities to mesh? I mean, it worked. It worked in the 60s and 70s for the Raiders. It worked in the 80s for the Raiders.
Matt, that's like 40 years ago. Times have changed.
The Tuck rule, they were still around.
Oh, you're talking about that 1 year? Everyone has 1 year where they kind of get close. Look at Andy Reid. He gets one every 5 or 6 years.
But nonetheless, it's still like they have a way of getting around whatever common sense and logic there is.
Sure, they haven't bottomed out like the 49ers or had a long drought like the Browns, but I will say that they're more similar, I think, to the Bears, where whenever they build up on like one side of the ball, Bears always build up on defense. Raiders went all in on offense that 1 year that you referenced with Rich Gannon. They brought in Jerry Rice. They had Brown at receiver. Like, what are they going to do? They were just going to out-offense you, and it almost worked for them. And it might have worked if John Gruden wouldn't have went to Tampa Bay and led them to the Super Bowl. I honestly think that if any other team from the NFC would have made the Super Bowl that year, the Raiders most likely win.
Absolutely.
Because Gruden had seen them on film as their head coach. He knew their tendencies, and he was able to stifle them. You only have to win one game. It's not like other sports where it's a best of 7. So I don't know if he can ever replicate that season, and it's looked like he hasn't been able to do it. I thought he could come in, use his years as an analyst and getting to know the players behind the scenes as a way to build a good character team of maybe guys that he thought he could get undervalued, bring them in and have them overperform. Because you've seen it happen. Look at what Coughlin has done with the Jaguars. I honestly thought that was kind of what Gruden was going to go, build a young, defense-heavy core, and then go from there. But I honestly can't make sense of any of his moves. So I don't know. It's not like I know it looks like he has a plan, but it's sort of like he's building on like a 5 to 10 year plan. And in football, that's just such a long time.
But, maybe for him that works because when he negotiated the contract, he understood that it was going to take them a long time to get there. And so by having some of the part owner rule tied into the contract, that he could buy himself the time to acquire the pieces and develop them the way that he needs to make everything work.
But I could argue the opposite of that because the NFL is a salary cap league that's driven by quarterbacks. So if you have an elite quarterback like, let's say, Tom Brady, and if we're being honest, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, I know I dog Rodgers, but he's consistent enough that you're always in the playoff conversation. But all the other teams that don't have a mainstay at quarterback, they usually fluctuate. Some teams will make the playoffs every couple of years. Look at the NFC South. They've had, 3 of their teams make the Super Bowl over the past however many years, 6 to 8 years or so. And that's because you're able to build, using the salary cap to your advantage, young groups of guys, and then you hope that your quarterback is able to elevate your play. I mean, Matt Ryan has been so close. He honestly should have won that Super Bowl with the Falcons if they don't tuck their heads and just wait for Tom Brady to win the game. I mean, honestly, that could have changed their franchise. That could have gave them something to build on, but that was such a demoralizing loss. You knew they weren't going to be the same the next year. Then you have, Cam Newton's been around, but he hasn't been in that top consistent state. So you're constantly going up and down. I would argue that he had a quarterback with Derek Carr, that he could have done that, and he had a team that he could have made a run, because honestly, they just hadn't made a run. They had double-digit wins before Gruden. So they can come back and do the same exact thing. I don't think he had to blow it all up. It's not like basketball where you can focus in on one player that can change your franchise. Whatever you have on your team in NFL, you can build around and plug and fill holes. That's why everyone loves the NFL draft. But just trading your best guys away and then bringing in locker room issues, that just doesn't make any sense to me. But we'll see. You have any other thoughts on the Raiders?
I just think when you're looking at what they're doing right now, the reason that it's so hard to understand what they're doing is because you come from following Pittsburgh, where they're a franchise that really tries to pull people away from doing outside of the last couple of years. They usually have high character locker room guys that just do their job and kind of don't make the national headlines. And when you see what the Raiders are doing, they're hiring all these cancers and just somehow just putting them all together like a giant social science experiment to see what's going to happen. It's just interesting to see that somehow the Raiders make it work, where with normal teams and normal rationale, you don't do that.
They had 4 wins last year. You're talking about they made it work when the recent years they didn't have head cases on the team. This is a Gruden thing bringing them in.
But again, year one, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt,
and it's trending down. You start at 4-8. How low can you go?
Right.
You're approaching Detroit Lions territory. Picking up Antonio Brown and drafting a bunch of tight ends is like a Lions strategy. I'm surprised they didn't try to pull that. Think about it. You know I'm right. You focus on the offense, and then you bring in some questionable guys, and then after a while, you're looking around, and I mean, they had Sue for a while, didn't they? That was like the Lions are like, oh, he had issues. Bring him in. Let's see what happens.
Well, no, I thought they drafted him. They drafted him.
Yeah, but he had the issues beforehand, is what I mean. They knew he had issues coming in. And then he took him a while to float around, and now he's kind of like a serviceable veteran. But they drafted into those issues. You would think that if you're trying to build your franchise and you don't have high character guys in place, why would you even take that risk? It's not like they didn't know he was stomping on players in college. Everyone knew he was doing that. So let's go out and do it. It wasn't like Laramie Tunzel, where as they were drafting him, his issues came out on social media, and they were kind of stuck with them. But we'll see what happens. Any other NFL stuff you have?
Speaking of Sue, with them releasing the Bucs releasing Gerald McCoy, and signing Sue. What were your thoughts on that?
At this point, I'm sure the Bucs need some veteran leadership. They've been young for a while. They need guys that know how to win to push them to the next level. And honestly, I just gave my thoughts on Sue. He's never really turned it around to be a high character locker room guy to me. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see how he does, but that's kind of what they're looking for. Can they get him a veteran at a discount and try to get some of these younger guys to play hard? Sure, I'm sure he can motivate his team, but I just don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought it was a good hire. I think when you look at what he brings in terms of his physicality, it's going to be a fit. It also matches something that it seems like Arians likes, that he's willing to to go after guys that are going to bring that physicality to the defense. And that was one of the things that he did when he went to Arizona. He went out and bolstered up the defense to help give them their run. A lot of the offensive pieces were already there when he took over from Ken Wisenhunt. It was just a matter of making it work. I think he's just following the similar blueprint with Tampa. They have the weapons on offense. It's just getting the defense to pick it up.
That's just such a tough division, though, that, like I said, all the other 3 teams in that division have made a Super Bowl recently. That's what you're going up against. It's not like a bunch of scrubs where they play the Browns up until now, but the Browns are a laughingstock. That's an automatic 2 wins for all the teams in that division. So then you're able to get multiple teams into the playoffs. They don't really have a team to beat up on unless that is the Bucs. So you're left in a situation where it's kind of strange, as that division is going to beat itself up and really only produce one strong playoff candidate, almost kind of like what the NFC North was doing for a while. I mean, sure, the Packers were getting in. They didn't have as many wins, or they weren't like a number 1 seed, but they were battle-tested going into the playoffs, and I think it showed.
Well, look at what the AFC North has been doing, where you have Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh vying for the division title, and Cleveland dragging a leg in the back.
Yeah, so I said you get automatic 2 more wins. So even though the other teams are beating each other up, you're able to get 2 teams in the playoffs because of that. Instead of maybe splitting with all the teams in your division and getting 8 and 9 wins, you're ending with like 11 and 10. And your champion and the next best team make the playoffs because of that. And it benefits Pittsburgh, if we're being honest. And it could benefit them again this year if the Bengals tank, but we don't really know what they're going to be like. And the Browns, they look great on paper, but we got to see if it works out for them. I mean, you can't just crown them North champs. They might make a step and be the same exact team. Same record-wise, we don't know. So that's going to be a real competitive division. As we get into summer football stuff, we'll take a look at that. But I wanted to bring up here, to wrap up the football stuff, Matt, XFL started to finalize their coaching staffs, and man, I thought I was really hoping that the XFL, I'm going to see if I can bring up the actual list so I get the names right, but I was hoping that they would go in the other direction. And I might get some flack for this, but Art Briles was out there. He had his issues, so I know a lot of people might jump on me for this. Those issues were about managing young men in a school setting. This is a professional football league. Why would you not jump on him and at least see what he has to offer? Sure, he had the off-the-field issues, but number 1, is he in jail? No. Has he served his time? I think yes. But would I hire him at a college? Hell no. Would I hire him in the XFL? Yes. Let's see what happens. What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting that you say that, because that was actually one of the things I was looking at. Mount Vernon High School in Texas.
Yep.
Hired him. And I don't know. I would be interesting to see what the school board rationale for that was, or what that interview process looked like, because I would just be curious to see what, knowing that they were going to catch the national media headlines, why they would take the risk. I think it would have been a good hire for him to go to the XFL. Obviously, with whatever was going through, no one's ever going to really know outside of the Baylor people, because it's a private school and they've closed that case. But it wasn't enough that they sent it to the authorities, so no one was arrested for it other than the players responsible.
Yeah, and that's where it's an oversight situation where you're in charge of reporting all kind of stuff. In the XFL, you wouldn't have that oversight. Your main goal would be to coach football. If you wanted a redemption story, and America loves those. Right there is your redemption story. I mean, why not? If he's not, like I said, he's not in jail. He's obviously taking a job at a high school, which I think is more risky than XFL. Sure, it's not the high level. He'd be making more in the XFL, most likely. You know, some of those high schools in Texas pay big bucks, but I don't think where he landed is one of those. But would you really want him in charge of young adults if he already blew that in the first place? Now, I'm not knocking the guy and not saying that he shouldn't have another opportunity. I'm just saying that he's been successful. Why not let's bring some of that high-powered offense into the XFL to make it exciting? Let me just go down a list of some of these, Matt. See if you recognize some of these names, because I don't know if you looked at the coaching hires that we're filling out. XFL, if you don't know, their goal was to fill out their coaching staff. Now, I may have reported that their rule changes were set in stone, but apparently they are trying to get those finalized by August. So we talked about some earlier, and I said that they were still trying to figure them out. None of those might have been set in stone yet. We won't find out until August. Oliver Luck, the old AD at West Virginia, is in charge of the league, and he worked with the NCAA compliance, so he has big-time experience in athletics. He said that they are on track to finalize the rules in August. I guess they're trying them out as they start early tryouts and training camps, because they are having open tryouts, Matt, if you're interested to see if you could play at the XFL level. I think they were in New York. I don't know if they're hitting other cities. But they started to hire their coaches. Let me just see if you know these guys. The first one that stuck out to me, June Jones, head coach of Houston. Matt, you know what he's been doing?
Canadian League.
Yeah, because why? Because he is old, Matt.
He got tired of winning in Hawaii.
Here, let me give you another one. Jerry Glanville, defensive coordinator for Tampa Bay.
Wow, blast from the past, the old Atlanta coach.
Another former Michigan Wolverines defensive coordinator, Jim Herman. How former are we talking about here, Matt? How many years back are we going?
I don't know. Got to mix it up, yes.
These guys have been, number one, out of coaching, or, I mean, out of a big-time gig. I don't even know where Jim Herman has been coaching the last couple. Matt, you're going back multiple defensive coordinators for Michigan at this point to even get to Herman, let alone using that as a tagline to announce your hire. Former Michigan Wolverine defensive coordinator to join the XFL in New York. Like, why is that your tagline? Everyone knows the defensive coordinator is Don Brown. Before that, it was DJ Durkin. Like, Greg Madison, he's now at Ohio State. Like, how far back are you going? Then we're going looking at Hal Mumm, offensive money.
The godfather of the air raid.
Yeah, godfather, because he's so old, Matt. He is the offensive coordinator for XFL Dallas. I have no words to describe this. They're also bringing back some players, though. I do like this move. They brought in Moose Darryl Johnson for a player rep for Dallas or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what his position is. Something about player personnel. I guess it might be general manager, but head coaches are also general manager, so we'll see how this works out. And Vince McMahon has announced that he's going to run both the XFL and WWE, which worries me a little bit because it was originally announced that he was going to go all in on football. Maybe he's not as confident after watching the AAF fold. I don't know. But we'll see. Those are a couple coaching hires that I just wanted to highlight to show that they're going in the wrong direction, Matt. They're not plucking up-and-coming coaches to try to put together.
They're not plucking up-and-coming, but I don't know that up-and-coming is going to be willing to take the risk of going to an upstart league, especially, just like what you said, off of the heels of the AAF collapsing. What makes you stick your neck out to go to a league that may or may not be successful when you could potentially still you could still climb the ladder and go the NFL route, which is proven to be the show. With a lot of these coaches, the thing that I like with it is the fact that they're running diverse offenses. They have so many different things that they're going with that I think is going to make for a more interesting league. And that's kind of what I'm liking with it, as opposed to just getting a bunch of pigeonholed, same style pro NFL offenses and getting kind of the spotty stuff that you're seeing early on with the AAF.
Matt, you're going to get the same exact thing. It's going to be a worse version of the NFL right after the Super Bowl, where everyone was like, wow, that was kind of depressing to watch, where guys were dropping punts a bunch of times and no one could score, and it took about, 5 weeks for the games to get interesting right before they ended it. We're going to have the same exact thing. You're going to be like, holy crap, was that a play from NFL Quarterback Club 98? Like, what are we running here? And I don't even know what to think other than, yeah, you might be right, but I honestly think that they still could have pulled big-time coaches that maybe were assistants. Because you always have guys, and I mean, look, Pep Hamilton took the jump. He was an offensive coordinator for Michigan. Of course, it didn't work out. He 100% could have got another offensive coordinating job. He's been doing them for, a decade now? I mean, he's been the offensive coordinator at the NFL and at the college level. He could have bounced around yet again, but instead he's been trying to make that head coaching jump. This is a perfect opportunity for him. His offenses aren't what I would consider high-powered, but are you honestly telling me that you think Art Briles would have turned them down?
Obviously,
they didn't even come talk to him. He said,
that what are you doing? You sitting around the Memorial Day picnic with Art Briles?
Yeah, that's where I was on Memorial Day. I said, hey, Art, before you head to Texas, why don't you stop by? Because he was over in Europe somewhere? North Carolina's on the way. I said, just make that connecting flight in Raleigh. And we'll sit down and chat about your job prospects. Actually, we should just reach out and see if he'll call into the show, and he can clear the air. We'll find out what offers he did have, because I honestly just don't know why they couldn't get other coaches. I mean, there are a plethora of coaches. Rich Rodriguez. Why not bring him in? He's not doing anything. I mean,
Why don't you go to a second-rate level air raid coach when you already have the inventor of it?
Oh my gosh, Matt! But you don't have the innovator, and now of course they're not going to get Mike Leach, but
they got Bob Stoops.
They did get Bob Stoops. True, very true. So that's more of the direction I was hoping they'd go. Of course, Les Miles. If Kansas would have held off for one more year, we could have had Les Miles back in the XFL, because he was dying to coach, and he wouldn't have settled if Bob Stoops came out to coach in the XFL. Les Miles 100% would have came out and coached. So he just missed out on by a year. But we'll see. I was hoping that maybe Spurrier would get another go, but I didn't see his name mentioned. Hopefully that comes back around after he had success in the AAF. So you already had a guy right there, basically AAF Super Bowl champion. Why not bring them in?
Shut up.
Matt, he won the championship. Do you need me to get you a Steve Spurrier t-shirt with all of the championships he has won at Florida and in the AAF?
Your money.
And the AAF, do you don't want me to have a championship shirt? I'll send it to you. I'm sure they make one. I can give you a visor. You could wear a visor instead of that hat you have on now.
Yeah, no thanks.
Anything else you want to talk about football before we move on?
No, that was the last bit.
All right, cool. I got some basketball stuff going into college here. RJ Hampton, I believe I have his name spelled right on the big board, has decided he was the overall, I think, 5th. I don't know if that was a composite, but I saw that he was the overall 5th recruit in this college basketball class, has decided to sign overseas instead of going to college. Matt, as a high school coach, what's your initial reaction to this news?
Hate it. I mean, I hate the fact that we're at this point where they're able to go overseas. It doesn't make sense to me. It's a huge risk, and turning down I look at it more from the academic standpoint that you're going to get more out of the degree when you go to college than you will the overseas playing, because how many players go overseas and it doesn't pan out, that have played college ball or that have that experience in the NBA or the D League or whatever. and go overseas and play. It's not a guarantee that he wants to go play in the NBA. It's not a guarantee that he goes to Australia and pans out. So it's a bold risk. I just don't like it personally.
I thought I was going to disagree with you on this, but I'm kind of leading your side, and my example was going to be Ben Simmons. He played in Australia, and his knock from the NBA was, we don't know how good you are playing overseas, because we don't know. They change rosters so frequently over there that even if you are on the top tier, you're not going to be playing against the best every night. So he ended up going to LSU for a year. I think he was only there for 1 year to prove himself. So if you have international guys coming to college, look at Mo Wagner at Michigan. He came in, made a gigantic name for himself, and got himself drafted in the first round. By going overseas, you have no opportunity to promote yourself. If we're being honest, sure, you can sign your shoe deal, but you're traveling overseas. I don't know how much of that they have to pay. How much can he realistically put away? And then, to your point, Matt, if you don't have the degree to fall back on, and you have no ties to any other college, because that's one of the things that I was hoping, even for one and dones, that they would have a deal in place with these colleges that you could come back and finish your degree at any time. I think that should be the standard. I know some universities were pushing that out about a year or so ago. I know a bunch of them followed suit. I can't even remember who they were. But I'm hoping that everyone has that kind of agreement in place, because realistically, these guys are making money for your school. They go to the pros. It might not pan out. You can still use them because young kids will remember their names. Have them come back, be a player's assistant. Look what happened with Vince Young. I mean, Texas gave him a chance, and then they said that they had to let him go because he just wasn't showing up. Sure, it didn't pan out in the NFL for him. I'm sure he made millions of dollars in the NFL. Not everyone even does that. If you get drafted in the NBA second round, I don't even know if you get a guaranteed contract at that point. You're stuck in the G League or whatever they call it now. So I wish there was a better international network of teams, and I really think that Europe could make it work.
Well, there you go. Big baller brand.
Oh my gosh, Matt. Big baller brand. If they would put that together and have a legitimate circuit out there, because what happens is every country has their own professional league. And it's hard to tell which ones are the best, most competitive. And then even in the grand scheme of things with the NBA, because if you watch us play in, the World Cup of Basketball, whatever they call it now, I think they're trying to call it the World Cup to try to leverage soccer. I want to say that it's this summer. I could be wrong. Maybe it's next summer. But if you watch that, ultimately, if the United States really tries, they win every year. And they're playing against the best players from these other countries. That's who these college kids are going to go up against. And I just don't know. It's going to be hard for that leverage to happen whenever he comes to get drafted, or if he tries to sign straight out of there. I don't know what the deal works, but we'll see if it pays off, because every year it seems like one or two of these guys go, and I don't ever remember hearing of them again.
Now, I'll say this. One of the things that I look at with this is they're not really getting a whole lot right now with the way that they have the college basketball, the one and dones. It's not really helping them all that much anyhow. So if his goal is to play in the NBA, it would make sense to do your year at school and be done with it.
And that's if he's a guaranteed number one pick, though.
Yeah.
How many guys come out as the overall guy and go wire to wire top 5 picks? It's not very frequent. I mean, Zion Williamson, was he number one? He might have been the number one recruit, and most likely is going to go the number one pick. I can't remember the last time that's happened.
You're right. And I think taking that a step further, how many kids directly out of high school can make the jump from high school to the NBA and withstand the physicality of the game. Like, you watch the way these playoffs are right now, and I don't even going back to LeBron, I don't know that LeBron could handle what playoff basketball is bringing right now.
You mean young LeBron?
Yes, young LeBron. Back when he was drafted, not grown man who's been to the finals LeBron.
Well, you could have used Kwame Brown. That's the biggest one. Michael Jordan brought him in with, were they the Wizards or Bullets back then? I can't even remember. And they thought that he was going to contribute right away, and he got bullied so much that he never really gained any confidence, and I don't even think he stuck around that long. And that kind of started the one and done, at least talk. I think LeBron, he didn't go college, so I don't know what year they officially ended it. That was like a good couple years after Kwame Brown.
Oh, Kwame Brown, not Leonard, you knucklehead.
I thought I said Kwame Brown. Who knows? That's who I'm talking about. He was the number one pick with Michael Jordan. You could have put that together if I got the name wrong. But we'll see. I don't know what they're going to say overall with the changes. Are they going to let teams pay players? I mean, honestly, if it comes back to the shoe deals, just make the shoe deals public. I mean, if they're already investigating Adidas, Nike, and Under Armour, as the rumors are that Nike and Under Armour are next after these Adidas trials or whatever, I don't know if that's going to happen, but they could very well end it right away by just saying, look, if you're going to pay these guys, these amateur athletes, you have to do it publicly, just like the NBA does. They'll just put the numbers right out in the public, and then everyone will know who's getting what. And I honestly think that you might see players venture to other teams. Because right now, if certain teams are paying, like, would players go to Arizona? Would they go to LSU right now? I don't see how LSU still has the same coach. He's on the wiretaps, apparently saying, we had a big offer, and the NCAA reinstates him, and he's allowed to coach. For all I know, that could have been what set beeline to the NBA. It might not have been about his players leaving early, because that happened right after the NCAA tournament sometime. The NCAA let Wade right back to LSU, and they proceeded to get like 2 big-time recruits, and their guys just announced that they're not going to the NBA draft after all, and they're coming back. So he's going to have an absolutely loaded team in the SEC next year. And for what? He cheated? Like, what's the worst that can happen for LSU? They win the national championship, and what the NCAA says, you guys need to take that down. What if they said no? I mean, it only takes one team to stand up and say no, but we'll see. Anything else you have on that, Matt?
No.
I did want to add, before we move on to the last couple of topics, that Michigan did hire Juwan Howard, so another alum with the initials JH that played big-time recruits, played at the highest level. Juwan was he played in the NBA for 19 years or something. He ended up being the player coach for LeBron on the Heat when they won the championship. So I know he has a ring from when he was player there, and then he just kind of transitioned.
He never actually quit. He was still just playing this season, and then they're like, hey, why don't you just come over here, Grandpa, and sit down. Just start coaching.
Matt, he pulled the squatting role. He just was there so long and never left that they were like, we didn't think we were paying you anymore. And he's like, yeah, you're paying me as a coach. And then they're like, well, we'll run that by HR and make sure. That's probably exactly what happened. And then he was just a Heat coach. He didn't have to give up his chair. He just kept sitting there and kept showing up. It's like Office Space when they quit paying that guy. And he just kept coming into work. Maybe that's how you get ahead. But pretty excited about the hire. They obviously they put out that they contacted a bunch of the top guys. Didn't get him. All I wanted them to do was reach out, because you never know. And I don't see anything wrong with this hire, but we'll see how it goes. I know he doesn't have any head coaching experience, but there are a lot of coaches across college basketball that don't have head coaching experience. I mean, he interviewed for the Timberwolves job, so it's not like the NBA teams weren't interviewing him, trying to hire him. So it could be a success. It really depends on who he surrounds himself with as assistants, because I think that's the most important thing that you can do as a brand new head coach. So, good luck to him, and we'll get into some NBA Finals talk now. I was wrong about Kawhi Leonard. If I mix up those names earlier, I apologize. But we have the Spurs let him go to the Raptors. And I'm thinking, the Raptors, they're always right there. They're the paper tiger. They get into the playoffs. I made references to it countless times about how they don't have the players to get over the edge because they don't have the experience. But they get one. And I said in the Bucks Raptors preview, you need one star who's going to show up big. A lot of people said the Greek Freak's going to get it done. He has Milwaukee right there. They have the best record in the NBA. They're going to go ahead and get right in. It wasn't even a series. The Raptors put them away. Very, very shocking because of how tight the Sixers played them, Matt. So as a Sixers fan, how do you feel? You were so close.
They were a good team, and I liked my chances. They were 2-0 versus the Warriors in the regular season, so it's not like they're completely unfamiliar playing them. I like the chances of them going forward. I think right now Golden State's vulnerable with all of the off the court issues with Steph Curry and his wife and the potential of Durant to the Knicks. I think there's a little bit of opportunity for Toronto to make a splash.
Matt, what is this? TMZ? What are you talking about? Players' wives?
Sure. She wasn't getting no attention, she said.
Oh man, I can't even believe that that's the kind of stuff that the media would pick up and run.
You could actually call her up, see if she wants to be on the show, make her feel wanted. we could add her to the docket.
If you want me to, we'll see if we can get it done. Art Briles, what's her name? Mrs. Curry. I would imagine she took his last name. I could be wrong, but that'd be a hell of a guest slate for us. But we'll see what we can. I'll put it out there, Matt. Why not? See what happens. Maybe we'll get it done. Maybe we won't. But going forward, the KD thing, that should not be any factor into this because he's already injured. He's not going to play game one, I don't think. They said Boogie Cousins might come back. I think I heard. But I don't even know at this point, what do you do? They look like they were operating on all cylinders. Do you try to bring these guys back and rush them back just because it's the finals? I say let it play out and see what happens. It's a 7-game series. See how the first couple games go, and then throw in your counter punches. Don't rush a guy back just because it's the finals. That's how you get players playing not 100%. You get matchups that they can take advantage of, and then it hurts your team. Let them rest a few more days. They space these games out, and the games are built in with a million commercials. So if you are injured and you're limping around out there, you will have time to rest during the TV broadcast. So I say let it play out. What are your predictions going forward, Matt, for this matchup?
I'm going to actually go with Toronto in 5.
Oh my gosh, that's almost a sweep. Are you nuts?
Yep.
I thought you were going to say Toronto in 7.
No, because we always go with 7 or 6, so I'm going to mix it up.
I would say I still have the Warriors going. I don't think it's a sweep. Just because I don't want to count the Raptors out, I'd give them 6. I think they win 4-2.
But I think the thing that's going to help them is with the guys being injured, if they can get up on them early and score and put it away, then that's going to help them. The deeper they drag the series out, the more the experience that the Warriors have comes into play.
And I just think back, since you mentioned the Game 7 stuff, when's the last time there was a Game 7? I feel like the NBA Finals have not been competitive in a while. Am I wrong in thinking that? Was it?
It's been lopsided.
Was it even the Spurs Cavs or Spurs Heat, whatever that one was with LeBron? winning. Maybe it was the Cavs. I don't even know. I feel like it's been a while. Every time it seems like the Warriors win, they win in 5 games or so. And they've won 2 or 3 of the last couple. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the NBA has an issue. I saw that they put out an article about their Supermax contracts and how they're actually working, because that's their way of getting top players to stay with their teams. And they cited James Harden and Steph Curry and how that was a great series. But to me, okay, so you get Steph Curry to stay. It's not the issue is not the Supermax contract. It's not about players leaving. The issue is that the rest of your players that aren't on the Supermax are picking and choosing when to end their contract so that they line up with friends of theirs, and then they're signing less than the max deal to come play. That's how the Warriors end up with 5 All-Star guys. Because Boogie Cousins can end up there. Kevin Durant just signs there in free agency. It's not like there's any way around it. I think the only way that they could get around it is if they forced players, and I don't even know if they would be able to do this, but if you force them, once you get so many All-Star appearances, you kind of do like a salary band, and you say, okay, you're in an upper echelon here. You can't sign for less than $30 million or whatever it is, or $10 million a year or whatever. I think that's honestly the only way that you can stop these super teams. But I don't know if they're ever going to do that, because teams don't want to pay guys the max money. They just don't want to. If you can pay one guy for Supermax, like James Harden is, and then fill him up with a bunch of, complement players that are veterans, maybe older, you can sign them for less than the max, they're happy because they're going to make a revenue to get people to come see him, and they're in the playoffs. Maybe they win a finals with him. Maybe not, but it's not a big deal. But that's not the issue. The issue started when the Heat saw that, or LeBron and them saw that Boston worked out this big 3, and they said, you know what, we got to become a big 3 to compete with that. He gets Bosh and Wade, and they go to Miami. They structure their contracts so that it works. Those guys weren't all taking max deals. And then once other players saw that, then it seemed like every offseason they were like, are they going to bring in Carmelo? Are they going to bring in Chris Paul? Paul gets traded to the Lakers for whatever reason. The NBA nixes that deal. And I think that was the final straw of just creating these super teams. And it is what it is. There's nothing they can do about it unless they start to do salary banding or some other restriction on getting players to sign below their value. Supermax to me does nothing. And that's just an off-topic rant. But do you have anything else you want to add on that or the NBA, Matt?
Well, I think that would be tough to have to restructure those contracts or to have it within so many all-star players, because what's to say that people don't just start, and this is pure conspiracy theory on something that wouldn't happen, but to say, all right, well, we want to get this player onto our team, so we'll vote him in so that they can't afford to keep him.
And that's when you might have to just do some advanced stats and come up with, they already have the WAR ranking for baseball, the wins above replacement. There is a stat out there that shows you how many points, and maybe it's not even all-star appearances, because I saw something with Klay Thompson, just because of the strength of how many players the Warriors have. He didn't get voted into an all-NBA team or something like that this year because, you want the whole team to be Warriors? He doesn't get in. He had a clause in his contract that owed him millions of dollars if he made it. So he was pissed just because he missed out on that money when he had the stats to get on it. But like I said, they're not going to pick all the players from the same team. Maybe little incentives like that can persuade players not to team up, because you're much better chance at getting those individual honors on a team that you're in charge of by yourself. But I mean, they really have to see. It's hard to know the motivation. Do you want them to win championships, or are they only focused on the money? And as an owner in the NBA, you don't know that. So there's no really good way to find out, because on the other side too, players get old. okay, LeBron has like a bazillion All-Stars, but is he going to command like $30 million a year or whatever? Like, that's outrageous if he was playing like Peyton Manning in his last year. Of course, Peyton Manning took the pay cut to go to the Broncos and win another Super Bowl. Like, the NFL didn't have any way to stop that, and they actually encouraged it because now they can show Papa John's commercials more. So, it's a win-win, lose-lose. Yeah, I think the only thing that it really hurts is the fans, and there's nothing that they can do about it. Let's get into the Stanley Cup, though. Blues. I don't remember what teams I actually picked on the show, but I had a poll with some friends, and I had the Blues were my team, my surprise pick. That I thought that if any team was going to win out of the West, it would be them. And then they came down, and I honestly didn't even think they were going to make the finals, but they get there. They have the lead last night, and of course they choke it away. And you can't do that. You can't do that in the finals. You can't have a lead and choke it away. So now I'm not confident in that pick at all. I don't know what to think of Boston. They've been on a roll. I honestly thought after they crushed Carolina that they could falter, but it hasn't happened. So it's just a different beast. You look at the NBA stuff that we talked about. Once a certain amount of those players on the NBA, you're seeing the same teams in the finals every year for the NBA. The only repeat teams in hockey have been, the Penguins? And then before that, maybe the Kings. I can't even remember which guys even got to the finals back-to-back. I know the Penguins won it back-to-back, but no other...
Maybe Blackhawks.
Yeah, the Blackhawks, but I mean, even before that, Penguins weren't even playing the same teams. Out west, you had the Sharks, you had Vegas go in. Now you have the Blues. On the east, you have a bunch of different teams. The Caps, Bruins, you had the Pens. So it's just a different beast, and maybe because you have more players on the ice and the salary cap there is a little bit more restrictive because you're signing more players. I don't know, but hockey to me feels much more of a crapshoot. I still can't believe you picked the Raptors because I thought that would be the easiest finals not to watch and just watch the Warriors win in 5 or 6 games and just call it a day. But in hockey, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this finals, Matt?
I want to see St. Louis beat the Bruins just because I'm tired of Boston. I just don't want to deal with anything else with them for a while. They've won their championship. I'm pulling for the underdog.
Well, they have won one in hockey. I think they've won one in every major sport recently, right? Celtics got one with the big 3. I think they only got one. They lost the other one. Then the Red Sox have been winning on and off since they broke the curse. And then, of course, my man Tom Brady, he's getting those rings. So then you're really left with the Bruins, and I'm pretty sure they've won one since 2010.
Oh, they have.
Just going back a decade. Yeah, I know that they were in the mix. So, I mean, do they really need one? St. Louis, I felt like, is a team out west. Normally when I do my picks, I think, like, what teams do I not like? I really don't like the Sharks because of the way they played the Penguins recently. And you can go back and look at across all the other teams that I really hate out there. And I thought, hey, you know what, the Blues? Maybe not. I don't mind them. And I don't really know of any players on their team that I really hate. Anyone that annoys me, so I hope that they get the win. The East has been in control for the last couple of years due to the Penguins and the Caps, so it's always good to see a Western team win. I'm just glad it's not a team from Canada. But anything else you got for the NHL? I know we're going right to the end of the show now, so.
No.
All right, let's get into our final bell. We'll wrap it up. You got anything for the finals for us? Final bell?
Honestly, not this week. Just if you need something to fill the gap, watch a little bit of St. Louis Cardinals baseball.
Why not the Pirates, Matt?
Because, well, I guess you could technically watch them right now till they trade Bell away because he's blowing the cover off the ball. Be a great story for the Yankees or the Dodgers, someone that's going to spend money for him.
Well, I'm hoping to make it up to Pittsburgh to see a game this weekend, so we'll see. I'm hoping I'll be in Pittsburgh for Pirates game, as they take on the Brewers, I believe. So hopefully weather holds out and I'm able to make that trip. But you're right. Bell has been blowing the cover of the ball. And a normal fan would think, ooh, who can we get to help him out in the lineup? But like you said, Matt, what will the Pirates actually do? They will think, wonder what 3 international pitchers we can get. Or do we need some more?
A bag of buns.
I hear the Altoona Curve could use some players. Why don't we try to trade him and get 6 players to be named later, and we'll get a bunch of AA All-Stars, and we'll put them on the wall. Because if you've ever been to Altoona Curve, the minor league team for the Pirates, they have the wall. They list all the players that have been, I think they still have this. They had it a while ago, but it lists all the players that played with the Curve that then got to play in the major leagues. So why not get a couple more players for Bell that can go on the Altoona Curve wall, Matt? Because this 500 thing, it's not going to last much longer. Pirates are right there hovering around 500, and it's the perfect spot too, because the fans are like, oh, are they going to make a move? They made the move for Chris Archer last year, and this year they're not going to make another move. They're just not. So, hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I would love to stop flying my Pirates flag at half-mast. I know it was Memorial Day yesterday. That was a thing to do, but once the Pirates are eliminated from the playoffs, I just fly that Pirates flag, the Jolly Roger at half-mast, hoping for a miracle, and it never comes. So, anything else you got for the show this week?
Just check out the website. If your summer's here, you might want to get yourself a new shirt. Get yourself a Southbound Sports one. It's good stuff.
Yeah, good. Go to southboundsports.com. We have been putting up all our episodes there and working on some other stuff to get up in terms for football. If there's anything you want to see, let us know. Reach out to us. I'm trying to get back into the groove of social media and stuff, so you can contact us there. You can also call our voicemail number. It's on the video, but if you don't have the video, it's 412-330-1512. Call and leave a voicemail and let us know. Give us some questions. Maybe we'll try to get some guests like we've been teasing. See what happens. Might not happen. It might. Let us know. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.